Hi, my name is Tatum, and this is how my sister destroyed my wedding, then watched her own life unravel, one brutal truth at a time. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. I wore the ivory silk dress. I walked down the aisle under the blooming magnolias. I kissed my groom, Audric, like in every dream I dared to have. And then, right as we cut the cake, she stood up. My sister, Mireille, the same woman I once gave my college savings to so she wouldn't get evicted, grabbed the mic, looked around at 200 guests, and smiled like the devil. "She doesn't love him," she said, her voice smooth as venom. "She's only here for the money." That's when everything inside me snapped, because what she didn't know was I had been recording, and her secrets weren't staying secret much longer. There was a silence, not the kind that comes with awe, but the kind that swallows oxygen. The DJ froze. Forks clinked nervously on china. I remember the sound of someone letting out a breath, like they'd just watched a car crash happen in slow motion. I felt every eye on me. Suddenly, my wedding dress felt tight around my ribs, suffocating. Audric looked at me, stunned, like I had turned into someone else right before his eyes. I didn't cry, not yet. I just stood there, skin burning, heart clenched, tasting copper in the back of my throat. Mireille stepped back from the mic, like she had just dropped a goddamn truth bomb. Her face, satisfied, like she'd been waiting years for this. She always knew how to command a room. Even when we were kids and she'd lie about stealing cookies, it was always me who got in trouble. Because she could cry on command. Because she was prettier, softer, smaller. But here's the thing. This time, I wasn't going to take the blame. Not again. 30 minutes later, I locked myself in the tiny bathroom near the catering prep area. The room was cramped, with a flickering fluorescent light and a mirror that somehow made me look older. I sat on the closed toilet lid, my dress pulled around me like melted wax, hands trembling. I could still hear people outside, whispers. "Do you think it's true? She does make more money than him, right? I mean, she is a little cold." There it was, my punishment for being composed, driven, and not performing softness on command. The door creaked open. I expected Audric. I got Maeve. She knelt in front of me, no makeup, hair pinned up like a ballet teacher's. Maeve had been my only real friend since college, loyal, private, blunt, my mirror when I couldn't see straight. "She planned this," Maeve whispered. I didn't respond. She asked the planner for a specific cue, said she had a surprise for the toast. I saw the email. I didn't say anything because I thought maybe she had a dance number or something. I blinked. "A dance number?" Maeve shrugged. I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Again, like we always do. I looked down at my hands, at the nail polish Mireille had picked out for me just 2 nights ago. "Something neutral," she had said. "Something that doesn't scream trying too hard." The irony didn't even sting anymore, just burned cold. We left quietly, no dramatic exits, no confrontations. I told Audric we'd talk later. He nodded, still stunned, still too polite to push. That's what I'd always loved about him. Still do. He lets me breathe. When we got home, I poured a glass of bourbon, took off the dress, and opened my laptop. Because here's something you might not know about me. I have receipts. Literal ones, digital ones, video ones. I just never thought I'd need them against her, but I always kept them. Because somewhere in my bones, I knew this day would come. The footage was everywhere by morning. A guest had uploaded it to Instagram sometime after midnight. A shaky vertical clip, grainy but clear enough to show Mireille's face, glowing with calculated cruelty. And me, stunned stiff, gripping Audric's arm as though I might fall. The caption read, "Sister of the bride just called her a gold digger. At the wedding, you can't make this up." It had over 80,000 views by 7 a.m. The comments split down the middle. "She's so composed, I kinda believe her. That bride totally looks like the type. The groom's rich, right?" And there it was again, that damned word, composed, like it was a red flag. Like staying calm made me suspicious. By noon, a Reddit thread popped up, dissecting the dress, my face, my body language, my job. Some troll said I blinked 3 times after the accusation, a sign of deception. Another said I'd made my whole personality about being unbothered, and that was terrifying. People don't want nuance. They want good girls or villains, saints or snakes. And Mireille had painted me as the latter. Audric stayed quiet for most of the morning, glancing at me now and then, like he wanted to ask something but couldn't find the words. I don't blame him. He's not the type to explode. He folds inward, process first, react never. The kind of restraint that's both comforting and dangerous. Eventually, I broke the silence. She knew what she was doing. He nodded. It was rehearsed. She planned this, scripted it. She waited for the cake, for the cameras. We looked at each other like strangers, like co-survivors of something unspoken. And I hated that. I hated that she made us question anything at all. Maeve showed up later with a printed email in her hand. No greeting, no preamble. This is from her to the venue manager, dated 2 weeks ago. She requested a surprise mic moment, said it was deeply personal, deeply healing. She weaponized your wedding for clout, she added. This wasn't about truth. This was about spectacle. I read the email twice, then again. There were emojis in it, hearts, stars. It was chilling, like watching someone plan an execution while smiling. Did she tell anyone else? I asked. She told Rachel, and 2 other people who aren't speaking to me anymore. They said I was taking sides. I laughed once, bitter. There are no sides in a lie. There's just the liar. That night, I opened an old folder on my hard drive labeled M Archive, something I hadn't looked at in years. It had started as a trauma dump, a place I filed everything Mireille had ever done that I couldn't explain. Screenshots, voicemails, anonymized journal entries, a photo of her, barely 16, trying on one of my dresses and posting it online under a fake name, pretending to be me. I'd brushed it off then. She's confused, I'd thought. She wants attention. Now I wondered if it had always been envy. At the bottom of the folder was something I'd forgotten I saved. A chat thread between her and an old high school friend, leaked to me by accident years ago, where she wrote, Tatum thinks she's this stoic goddess or something, but she's cold. No man actually wants that. She just fakes control because she knows deep down she's not lovable. I read it 3 times, not because it hurt, but because it was accurate. She knew me better than anyone, and that made the betrayal so much worse. When I was 11 and she was 8, our mother collapsed on the floor of our kitchen. She didn't die, not then. But she never got back up properly after that. Not mentally, not emotionally. I cooked dinner for us most nights after that. Mireille learned how to cry for attention, while I learned how to stay invisible. It worked for us, for a while. But then she grew up and realized invisibility wasn't sustainable. She needed visibility. She craved it. And I was standing in her spotlight. So she started small, subtle lies, twisting things, making people doubt me without ever saying it outright. She didn't attack, she poisoned slowly. That's the part no one sees, not in a 15-second clip, not in a single toast, not in a viral hashtag. Maeve sat across from me later that night, sipping wine like it was ritual. Did you know she met Audric before you did? I froze. What? She was at that gallery opening, the one where you and Audric first talked. She was there an hour earlier. She flirted with him. You're sure? I was there. She got his card. But then he talked to you. That's when everything shifted. I couldn't feel my hands. She's been carrying this quiet vendetta for years, Maeve said. You just never noticed because you were too busy protecting her. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I opened up Instagram, opened the Notes app, and started writing. Not a statement, not a response, just a timeline of moments, receipts, whispers, videos. I wasn't going to post it yet, not until I was ready, but something in me knew. The only way out of this wasn't silence. It was exposure, not for revenge, for reality. Because if the world wanted to make a villain out of me, fine. But they'd have to do it after knowing the full story. Audric found the hard drive by accident. He'd been reorganizing his home office, trying to distract himself, he said, when he discovered a box labeled Pre-2019, Tax Plus Miscellaneous. Inside was an old external hard drive I didn't even recognize. "I think this used to be mine," he said, holding it up like a forgotten relic. "It's from when I ran that design firm, before the merger. We didn't expect much from it, but when we plugged it in, I noticed a folder labeled Entryway Cam Archives. Security footage?" I asked. He nodded. "From the office I used to rent downtown. There was a motion-activated camera near the front door. I clicked through files dated nearly 4 years back. Most were boring. Deliveries, late-night maintenance guys, a raccoon. But then, April 3rd, 2021, 10:13 p.m. The thumbnail stopped me cold. It was her. We opened the clip in silence. The image was clear enough to make me sick. There she was, Mireille, in a cream coat, hair tied back, standing at the front door of Audrich's office. She looked around like someone expecting to get caught. Then she pulled something from her bag, a small tool, probably a lockpick. She picked the lock, I whispered. Audrich leaned in. "That's not the main entrance. That's the employee exit. I didn't even know it could be jimmied." In the footage, she slipped inside. We watched 30 seconds of darkness, then she reappeared, holding a folder. She opened it, took pictures of the pages inside, then set it back exactly where she found it. She adjusted her coat, smiled to herself, and left. Timestamp, 10:17 p.m. We watched it 3 times. Each time my skin crawled more. "That folder," Audrich said finally. "It had old client contracts, nothing private." "Not to you," I said, "but to her, it was leverage." We stared at each other, not shocked, not even angry, just hollowed out, like something rotten we'd been smelling for years had finally shown itself. I added the clip to the growing evidence folder on my laptop. Then I did something I hadn't done since college. I logged into Reddit. Maeve had told me about a private subreddit called R the Clarity Club, an invite-only space for women in transformational experiences. Most of it was self-help fluff, but she remembered Mireille posting there about navigating trauma through performance. I found her handle, at Solstice Vale. The posts were unmistakably hers, long, literary, carefully curated. She wrote like someone always auditioning. One thread caught my eye. Reclaiming power, how I confronted my narcissist sister and went viral without naming names. Inside was a multi-part post about surviving an abusive sibling relationship. She spoke about me like I was some blend of Regina George and Lady Macbeth. She always controlled the narrative. I was the chaos, the drama, the mistake. But on her wedding day, I told the truth, and they listened. For once, they listened. 2,900 upvotes, a thread of comments calling her brave. Others sharing their own stories of escaping toxic sisters. I stared at the screen, nauseated. This wasn't about revenge, I said to Maeve that night. It was about identity theft, emotional identity theft. "She wanted to take your story," Maeve replied. "Make you the villain so she could be the hero in her own." "But she did it so well," I muttered. "So convincingly." "Because she didn't have to lie outright," Maeve said, sharp as glass. "She just had to bend your silence into guilt." That's when the email came. Subject line: "Cease and desist defamation notice." From a boutique PR firm in LA, representing Mireille Harper, a public personality currently building her brand in wellness and storytelling. They claimed that any footage or documentation of events intended as private emotional expression was considered unauthorized exploitation. They warned that if I posted or spoke publicly, legal action could follow. I laughed out loud. Because of course, she'd lawyer up. Not because she was scared, but because she wanted to scare me. She knew my reputation mattered to me more than anything. She knew I'd never risk looking bitter or unhinged online. But this wasn't a messy sibling feud anymore. This was calculated character assassination. So I sent the footage to Maeve, backed up everything twice, and messaged a tech-savvy friend from my agency days. Help me prep something secure. I want a live stream platform that can't be flagged or frozen. I didn't tell Audric. Not yet. I needed time. I needed space. I needed a plan that wouldn't just reveal the truth. It would frame it so cleanly, so devastatingly, that the world wouldn't see a woman defending herself. They'd see a sister setting fire to the lie that stole her voice. Ever had someone rewrite your life in front of an audience and get applause for it? Sometimes, the only way to reclaim your story is to burn theirs first. I didn't want revenge. I wanted a reckoning, with lighting, playback controls, and receipts in 4K. So I built it like an architect builds a ruin, piece by calculated piece, knowing exactly which walls I would knock down live. Maeve and I rented a studio in Atlanta. Quiet, polished, no frills. Just a soft-lit backdrop, 3 4K cameras, 2 condenser mics, and a producer who owed her a favor from an exposé she killed back in 2019. We called it a community dialogue stream. That's how we got around the PR threats. No names, no legal risk, just facts, just truth. We didn't announce it with fireworks, just a black image posted to my profile with one sentence. Sometimes, family isn't family. This Saturday, 7 p.m. ET, no hashtags, no sponsors, no branding. But the algorithm did its job. 36 hours later, nearly 42,000 people were queued for the live broadcast. I showed up early, not to rehearse, but to walk the space. I'd written nothing down, no script, no lines, because this wasn't a performance. This was something slower, heavier, like stepping into a courtroom, where I was both defendant and witness. The set was intentionally bare, just a high stool, a black background, a single muted red lamp glowing above me like a confession booth light. Audric didn't come. I didn't ask him to. He'd seen the footage, said he believed me, but the kind of belief I needed that night couldn't be silent. At exactly 7 p.m., we went live. I sat in the chair and looked directly into the lens. My name is Tatum. I'm not here to name names. I'm here to name truths. I paused. Let the silence do the work. A few weeks ago, someone I trusted tried to rewrite my story. They painted me as a woman who loves for money, marries for image, and lies by omission. They did it publicly, at my wedding. The chat exploded. Oh my God, she's going there. Wait, is this the gold digger bride thing? Here we go. I continued, but they forgot something. I don't erase things, I keep them. Because I was raised by someone who taught me that silence doesn't protect. It delays pain. I nodded toward Maeve, off screen. She tapped her laptop once. The footage began to play, not the wedding toast, not yet. It was the security footage, black and white, crystal clear. Mireille, breaking into the office, photographing files, resealing a folder like a pro. That was 2 years ago. She said it was to understand me better. I guess she did, because she knew exactly where to stab. Then came the Reddit post. We screen recorded the page, highlighted her username, her phrasing, her branding of me as a narcissist, her viral moment disguised as healing. This is how narratives are built, not by truth, but by performance. She called it bravery. I call it bloodletting in HD. The chat lit up with shocked emojis, then applause, then fury. I saw messages flood in. I followed her page. She DM'd me after that wedding video went viral. This makes so much sense now. Maeve nodded from behind the monitor. We weren't just reclaiming my voice. We were dismantling hers. At 7:27 p.m., something I didn't plan happened. Mireille herself joined the stream. Not visibly, but in the chat. Under her real name. This is cruel. I never gave consent for this. You're exploiting trauma. I read it out loud, slowly, calmly. You didn't give consent for exposure, but you gave yourself permission to lie, to smear, and to watch me bleed in front of hundreds. I'm just showing them the wound and the blade. We cut the feed 5 minutes later. No sign-off, no Q&A, just a final frame. Silence doesn't make you kind, it makes you complicit. By midnight, it had 2.3 million views. Hashtags spun out of nowhere. She was framed. Shucked Tatum tells the truth. Chuck Sister Slayer. It was messy. It was imperfect. And it was done. Mireille's fallout came faster than expected. Her PR firm dropped her Monday morning. The wellness collab she'd been promoting quietly removed her from its campaign. Her followers tanked by nearly 60,000 in 48 hours. And then the screenshots came. From followers, from former interns, from strangers who had interacted with her when she was writing her Sister Survivor narrative. She'd been recruiting people to comment on posts, to stir up sympathy, to flag my old business reviews as questionable. A one-woman war campaign built on my back. Maeve came by Tuesday. No makeup, same wine, different energy. She's probably going to try to disappear for a while, she said. Good, I said. She can vanish into the same silence she tried to stuff me into. We toasted, not to victory, but to clarity. Because that's the part they never show in revenge stories. The quiet, the afterward, the space where you're not angry anymore, just free. They say the truth sets you free, but they don't tell you about the part where it leaves you alone. Standing in the ashes of what used to be family, identity, trust. People clapped when I exposed her, but no one told me what to do with the quiet that followed. I paused, not because I needed to, but because I'd learned by now that what you don't say often lands louder than what you do. I didn't want applause. I wanted a life that didn't require defense. But sometimes, survival looks like speaking into a void and realizing it echoes back a version of you that finally feels like home. When I finished, no one clapped right away. There were just a few deep breaths. One woman in the third row wiped her eyes. That was enough. Afterward, someone approached me. A former school teacher, early 60s, soft scarf, hard eyes. She said, "My sister told the family I cheated my husband out of his pension." She framed it like concern. But it was envy. I didn't speak to her for 15 years. I still don't. She didn't ask a question. She didn't need to. I just nodded and said, "It's never just about the lie, is it?" She smiled, like that was the first time someone had said it that way. Back home, the dust had settled. But not everything had healed. Mireille had gone silent, deactivated her socials, pulled out of public work. I heard, through a cousin, that she was staying in Sedona, claiming she needed spiritual realignment. I didn't care, not in the indifferent way people pretend, but in the truly clean way, the kind of not caring that takes time and truth and grit to earn. I didn't block her. I didn't reach out either, because closure isn't a door someone else closes for you. It's a lock you snap shut yourself, and then throw away the key. Audric and I took space, not in the melodramatic, on a break kind of way. We just started choosing separate silences. He stayed in Atlanta, buried himself in work. I moved out, rented a cabin on a writer's retreat property Maeve once stayed at. 6 months, no Wi-Fi in the bedrooms, just trees, thick blankets, and quiet. We still talked, but something between us had changed. Not trust, not love, but the mythology. We had once been the couple that made people say, "Finally," like we were overdue happiness. But after all this, we both realized we didn't want to be someone's redemption story. We wanted peace, and that doesn't always come in pairs. I launched something called the Ash Line. Not a blog, not a newsletter, a voice file archive, anonymous submissions, curated and published weekly, where women told the story they were never allowed to speak. No names, no tags, no comments, just voice, just breathe, just the sound of survival. It blew up faster than I expected, not because it was marketable, but because it was honest. And for the first time, I was no longer the voice, I was the bridge. One morning, months later, I got a message. It was from a burner email, no subject, no name, just 4 words. "I'm sorry, you won." It could have been from anyone, a stranger, a troll, but I knew, and I didn't reply, not because I didn't have words, but because that was her game, always dragging me back into a stage where one of us had to lose. But I wasn't playing anymore. Closure didn't come in a courtroom, didn't come from views or vindication. It came in this: me, standing barefoot in a rented kitchen, stirring honey into my coffee, with no notifications, no crisis, and no need to defend the quiet. Some stories don't end with revenge, they end with quiet, and sometimes that's louder than anything else. They say family defines you, but sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is define yourself outside of them. What I went through wasn't just about betrayal, it was about reclaiming the story others tried to write for me. And maybe, if you're watching this, you've felt that too. Like someone else tried to narrate your life louder than you could speak for yourself. If this story made you pause, think, or feel something real, drop a 1 in the comments, or let me know where you're watching from. And if you didn't like it, that's okay too. Tell me why. Tell me where you're at in your story. Because here, we don't just share stories. We build voice, we break silence. If this video touched your heart, even just a little, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. This isn't the end. It's just the start of everything that matters.